I'm Mike Bursell. I am Chief Security Architect for Red Hat. Well, the first thing that they need to be aware of is risk management. I think if you're not getting a handle on risk management, you're going to have real problems. And it's particularly in order to scale it, you need to understand what risks you're trying to mitigate, how you're going to monitor them, how you're going to engage with them. And without a decent framework, that's very difficult indeed. And the other thing is, security isn't a standalone. You can't think of it as just one thing. If you think of it as something you slot in at the end of a project, or you just do at the beginning and you don't carry on doing, or it's just a standalone framework on its own, it's not going to work. It needs to be part of a much broader whole. Whether that's an operational set of questions, whether it's development, whether it's even in things like your HR and your training, certainly in terms of how you engage with your board, it's got to be all part of that. And security isn't a be-all and end-all. It's not something you do because it's fun, however fun you may feel it is. It's something you do because it's a business asset you've got to manage. And we're moving in many industries, in many sectors, in many geographies, and in many organizations to a much more agile way of doing it. And I mean that both in the sort of official agile framework, but also with a small a, moving faster, being able to, having to in fact, deliver more quickly to stay competitive in a global marketplace and in your local marketplace as well. You need to think about how security fits into that. What are you going to do as part of your processes, whether that's in a sort of a DevOps world, or more generally in your processes to embrace that speed and how you do it. And it's absolutely not just a tools and processes question. Tools are vastly important, processes are vastly important. The absolute key thing you need to get is culture. There's a cultural change that's taking place, and it's a cultural change that you need to reflect in your organizations. How are you going to address the fact that people are coming to security with a different mindset? How are you going to say, well, maybe in the past everyone said, well, security sits in this organization, and from time to time we'll ask them and say, are we okay to deploy this this application or this process or this project, whatever it may be. That changes. It has to change if you're moving from a 6 to 18 month rolling project to a, you know what, we're going to deploy every 2 weeks, every 6 hours, whatever it may be. You've got to change how you think about organization. You need to have understood from the beginning who's going to be involved, keep them involved throughout the process, but also how that reflects in terms of regulation and governance. Because if you're not addressing regulation and governance, you're not actually doing the job you're supposed to be doing. You're just doing security for its own sake. So as you start a project, you think, well, what is my governance model? What is my regulatory model? And then think, okay, what policies do I need to put in place to address that? And then how do I put them as part of my processes and my programs? You need to be able to automate that. And that in itself is a culture change. Policymakers need to look at everything from consumer devices to enterprise to cloud to everything. And key, I think, is to allow businesses, and particularly SMEs, for whom this is tricky themselves and they may not have that much expertise in-house, to be able to have a set of frameworks to address risk management in particular. And that's something we're very pleased that the NIS directive, the NIS directive, has been based on. Now, I think one of the dangers is to take a too prescriptive an approach, or to, say, technical mandates. We've seen in the past, not particularly from the EU, but worldwide, that sometimes, people, policymakers say, well, this is definitely the way you should go. And technology changes or methodologies change. I have auditors who come to me and the auditors have a checklist and the checklist just doesn't apply to the technology I'm using. So we spend half of our time explaining to the auditors what to do. And of course the auditors can only work from what they're being given by the governance and regulatory models, and that's where policymakers come in. So taking a broad approach with clear advice, but without prescriptive approaches, is absolutely the right way to do it. And we're pleased with not only where the NIS directive is going, but hopefully with where the Cybersecurity Act looks like it's going as well. So not only has the EU enshrined issues of risk management, it's again a fantastic thing, has been working closely with experts within the industry. That's a key thing to make sure that what is coming out is well focused and relevant to the people who are going to be using it, but also building on what is already part of the life of the EU and how we do this, with technical specifications and all those sorts of things. As far as we're concerned, that's absolutely the right way of doing it. And as the world's leading open source provider or provider of open source software, we are absolutely keen to keep engaging with the Commission and the EU and all the right people, the policymakers, on how open source fits into this world. Because open source is a part of what everybody does these days. It's part of the infrastructure, whether you're running on cloud or on premise, you will be using open source. And we want to make sure that continues to be the case, but that we have a robust security and risk management framework, so that when businesses, whether they're SMEs up to worldwide corporations, can make sensible choices about what software they're using, how they support it, how it fits into their processes, tools, into their culture, how their culture changes, and how it works in their regulatory and their governance models. And if we don't do that properly, we're going to fail, and that is absolutely where the policymakers can help us.